Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're in that fourth quarter, and I tell you, I've been talking about each week, what can we do to really start moving ourselves forward? Because the things we do this quarter sets us up for the rest of 2024. And we don't know what the economy is going to do. We don't know what's going to happen in the world. We've seen a lot of events this year, but the thing we can control is ourselves. So welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where we help entrepreneurs and business owners find solutions so they don't become overwhelmed and stressed. And are you ready to hear about one of those areas of the 6P business owner formula? Those 6 areas are people, productivity, pricing, promotion, process, and profits. Let's meet our guest today, who will tell us what problem they will help solve. Welcome, Andy. Will you help us solve a problem today? What is it?
It'd be my pleasure. The problem that I'd love everyone to help everyone solve is the problem of you, the business owner. Now, that might sound a little controversial or like a little stab in the heart, but I think there's really good news in that. If there's an issue in the business, we believe it is 9 times out of 10 due to the owner or the leadership team. The good news in there is, wow, we can really change that. We can create a lot of shifts and growth because we all have so much more potential than we're currently tapping. And that's what we like to help solve so that folks can go create the thing that they want to create.
Oh, I know this is going to be a great conversation. Now, you business owners, don't you hit that channel of stop, because the thing is when you make changes for yourself, your business grows and thrives, especially when you really self-reflect on yourself. So I know we're going to have a great conversation with Andy Hite. He's a recognized leadership coach who supports entrepreneurs, executives, and their teams as they navigate the world of building businesses and lives filled with prosperity, meaning, and freedom. And isn't that all that we all want in business and in life? Andy, it is great to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Gary, I really appreciate you having me. I'm excited for the conversation today and excited what I'm going to learn from you.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you because I love what you talked about is looking at the business owner. We're talking about them. And my grandma used to always say the saying is, if you point your finger at someone, there's 3 pointing back at yourself. Yeah. And you really ought to look at that. And sometimes we have a hard time doing that. And I think this is a great time because we are in that fourth quarter and we do need to reflect because as we both know, the business world is changing. So we as business owners have to change. So I'm going to ask you kind of lead up from what you talked about. Why do you suggest the founder or the business owner is the biggest problem in their big business today?
Well, because they're behind the wheel. Everything that happens within that business is a direct result of their actions, their mindset, their beliefs, their perspectives. And oftentimes, those areas need growth in order for the business to grow. Marshall Goldsmith has a great book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Mm-hmm. And a lot of folks get very frustrated when things don't change, when they have audacious goals, when they have really interesting things they want to put out in the world, but it's not moving in the way they want. Oftentimes it's because they themselves, the founder, the leadership team, have hit a ceiling. And then there is an opportunity for growth.
I love what you said of hitting that ceiling. I use that analogy and I've heard it before. I've been in strategic coach myself, and Dan Sullivan talks about that ceiling. And it's that ceiling of complexity because for a lot of business owners, let's admit, Andy, I know it happened to me. I outgrew my business. It went bigger than I ever expected, had up to 150 employees, and you're kind of scratching your head, my gosh, how did we get there? But the thing is, I feel like I was good at, I'm curious to hear a little bit of your story there, is how you overcome that. I started seeking outside help. with mastermind groups. One reason I lead a mastermind group now, and I think you have one, I sought out coaching and I really tried to improve myself. I said I was in the strategic coach program with Dan Sullivan and stuff. Flew to Chicago, actually, and that's where Andy's from, quarterly. And people would say, why do you do that? But, that's what allowed me to grow and allowed my business to grow. So I'm curious to hear some of your philosophies.
Without question. I mean, so often the opportunity for growth lies in our blind spots, in the areas that we can't even see, that we don't know exists. And without a good mentor, a coach, really skilled friend who can be honest with us and show us where those things we may not see about ourselves, it's really difficult to create change. And so kudos to you. I love Dan Sullivan, by the way. Kudos to you for seeking out that support, and being really interested in doing everything in your power to become the best entrepreneur that you could be, so that you could build the best business that you could build.
Yeah. I'm curious from your side of it, share a little bit, if you don't mind, how did you get into business coaching and stuff? Because, my story is, of course, I was in business, and I love the passion of helping other business owners. And you and I should be so busy, to be quite honest, that we can't even take all the clients, because small business owners, they're fighting it within themselves, what they really don't have to. And that's why some people say, well, why do you have another coach on? And I don't have there's so many people out there that, to be quite honest, our bookings, it should be, well, we can't take anymore, we're referring them somewhere else. But a lot of business owners they have limitations, but they don't know how to grow beyond those limitations.
Yeah.
So share with me your philosophies there that you had.
It takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to say, I might need some outside help. Right. And I use those words together because I think they're one and the same, right? We don't like to feel vulnerable, but in order to feel vulnerable, that is such a courageous act. And if we embrace that courage and vulnerability and seek that outside support to learn something, to look in the mirror, we can do so much more than we ever imagined. So your original question was, how did I get into coaching? I fell in love with coaching by working with a coach. I was in sort of more corporate America, dealing with really crappy leadership, and wanted to learn to navigate this world of leadership because I knew there had to be a better way. And so I fell in love with the work, the results that I was getting, how I was able to build better teams, the camaraderie, the respect, the empathy, all the stuff that came with it. And I just started helping people with what I was learning, and realized, hey, I actually think I can make a bigger impact in the world through this work than what I was doing. And so we made the shift. And I love what you say. Yes, we should be we should have people knocking down the doors. I think, don't quote me on statistics, but it's widely talked about in the EO world, of which I do some work with. 5% of business owners get to revenues of $1 million and above. And I think there's 33 million businesses or so in the US. That means more than 30 million businesses are below $1 million. There's 30 million clients for us. But why don't they step up to the plate? And I think it's really them seeing a very captivating and exciting goal for themselves, and believing that they can go do it, and then finding the support to help create it.
Yeah, I think that's so crucial, because for business owners, we've talked about the self-reflection. What a great time, because we're in the end of fourth quarter now. And really, we should be looking at, as business owners, I'm doing a session in a couple of weeks about goals and how important those are to set. And, I've always done it. So to me, it's automatic, but I'm surprised how many people set no goals, even business owners. I know individuals, it's very low too. but so many few people set those goals, so they have a hard time overcoming that. And I think that's the real key, is looking at ourselves. What do we need to do? I'm curious from your side of it, when you're working with business owners, entrepreneurs, executives, with your coaching, share with us really about who's that good candidate. We know they got to be willing and you got to
Yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
vulnerable on that side. But what from this work, how can they benefit from it and what can they expect? Because every coach is a little bit different. I have no problem talking about that here,
Yeah,
because you got to find the right fit for you. And I will tell anyone
yeah,
that. I believe in that. And I'm sure you do too.
yeah. So I think it's Tony Robbins that says success is 80% psychology and 20% skill. And that's really sort of the formula that we bring into our coaching. We're generalists, essentially, when it comes to business. We'll help identify areas of need. We'll look to the finances. We'll look to the marketing and the sales. But really, my passion and my job is to help that business owner see a much broader perspective, much bigger possibility for him or herself, so that they can go out and create it. And so really, a good candidate is the one that's hungry, is the one that knows that they have more in the tank than that they can like bring out into the world. And they realize with a partner like you or I, wow, we can go create that thing that we've been imagining for years.
I love that. That's the
Yeah.
key, is getting them to see a bigger perspective. You're listening to the Small Business Answer Man podcast. We're going to be right back after this short commercial break. And now back to the show. Well, Andy, I love what you talked about, that as that broader perspective. And that kind of plays on what we talked about a little bit about that goal setting and what do you want your business. But I'm also a believer, and I think I saw enough information about you in a little conversation, that you're not just about business. It's also about your life.
Yeah.
And I think that is so crucial. So let's talk a little bit about that goals and why you feel that is so important, because we've talked about that ceiling. How do we break out of that ceiling sometimes by using goals to help us get there?
Well, like I always like to use the archery analogy, right? If in the Olympics, if an archer steps up to the line to compete and there's no bullseye out in the distance, or it's not clear, there's no way they can win. And the same thing applies to us in business. If we don't have that thing that we're aiming for, we're never going to hit it. Right. And we'll just get what we get. As my mom would say, you get what you get and you don't get upset. Right.
Yeah.
You, before the break, you talked about folks not setting goals. Well, it's a perfect system, because if you don't set a goal, you can't be disappointed that you didn't hit it. Right. It's a self-protection mechanism. And so what I love to do is to call people forward again into that vulnerability and courage, risk setting an audacious goal. Because as Les Brown used to say, you know, aim for the moon. Worst case scenario, you land among the stars. But if you don't aim, you don't even get out of the atmosphere. And so be audacious and set those goals. It's Q4, right? So two things. We talked about being self-reflective. I did this with my coach last week. Look back at this current year. How did it go? What went well? What didn't? How could we have improved? We're going to be up this year, but nowhere near the goals that we set for ourselves. So I'll take it. We're still up. But I look back and I learned, you know, I did this and I didn't do this, and I allowed this to get in my way. So as we look to 2024, we should be audacious. We should have a goal that is exciting and also scares us to death. Because if we do, say, for example, we're a $3 million business and we say we want to get to 8. Well, we're going to do things and we're going to have to become a person that goes to get that $8 million. Well, what if we only land at 6? It's still better than saying at 3, right? Goals are the thing that allow us to grow. It reminds me, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I could go for days, Gary.
Yeah.
So stop me anytime. It kind of reminds me of a toddler, right? They have a goal to get to mom or dad on the other side of the living room. But if mom or dad wasn't there to pull them forward, they might not learn to walk as quickly. That is mom or dad coaxing them and smiling and laughing and bringing them forward that gets them to that goal so much faster. And I think we can do that for ourselves by creating this compelling vision out in the distance that calls us forward, that gets us up out of bed, that gets us in the office and excited to do the work.
Yeah, I love that with the toddler, because think about when they're trying to walk. How
Right.
many times do they fail before they truly succeed? Well, if that toddler stops trying, they'll never walk. But they keep trying. So in your analogy, if you say 8 million, you only hit 6 million. Yeah, maybe you missed it, but man, like you said, you moved so much farther ahead than you did before. And I love the analogy of really thinking back. I think you just told them a journal exercise that they really need to do is what's worked this year, and for your business, but also for you personally.
You personally,
Because
yeah.
I'm sure you see a lot of executives and business owners, things may be going great in their business, but personally it's falling apart. And of course that will affect the others at some point in time.
Yep.
I use the analogy of sin. You can't climb to the top of the mountain. If you get to the top of the mountain, you're by yourself. It's going to be pretty lonely. You can have all the money you want, but the problem is then you got to buy your friends because your family, everybody else has left you and you're left up there on the top of the
Yeah.
mountain.
And then what's the point, right?
Exactly. And then I think you said what worked, what didn't work personally and professionally. There's another question for you. And then I love the one you said, what did we learn this year? What did I learn this year? From the challenges, what did I learn? And what did I learn maybe that I implemented? And that's made a difference in my business. And then the last one to me was that you said was change. What do I need to change? Maybe personally, I know a lot of business owners that are very unhealthy people. I was that way. I told my story many times on here, so I won't bore my listeners the same story. But I was 275 pounds. And in 2002, in 11 months, I lost 75 pounds. And I've maintained that since 2002. Still have people today, Andy, it comes up and say, man, you've really kept that weight off. That's been 20 some years ago.
Congrats.
Yeah.
That is such an accomplishment.
Yeah. So it's getting them to look at it. So think for yourself when you're thinking goals. So I'm curious, when you talk goals, and you said you love this topic, and I love it because it's so practical right now for people to think about. How do you kind of work with them, and how do you kind of get them to see it? There's different frameworks. Everybody knows the SMART framework. I like Michael Hyatt's SMARTer because it throws risky into it versus just a relevant goal. Yep. On things of that nature. So just share with me what your philosophy is when you're working on them to think about goals, so people can kind of say, okay, if I walk away from this, I can still work towards that.
Goals really are the thing that allow for growth, right? Because it then requires something of you, right? Imagine going into the gym without a goal. Well, what's going to change, right? You might get a little benefit here or there, but if you say, I really want to go in and get ripped, well, you're going to do specific things in the gym to make that possible. So goals are the catalyst for growth. So in our work, when I start with a client, we get super clear. We probably take the first month or so getting clear. What do we want to create? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What's going to be on the other end of it? And then we look at where we are. There's a distance between where we are and where we want to be. And all the coaching is coaching that gap from I'm moving in this direction. Well, here's an obstacle. How do we move past that obstacle? Okay, I got over that. Now here's another growth opportunity. How do we get to there? So it's always having that bullseye off in the distance that we're moving towards constantly. And what we find is most people get, if not to the goal, very close, much closer than they would have otherwise. And they grow who they are. They grow their capacity. And so we just keep building and stacking that year after year.
Yeah, that's that point A to point B, knowing where you want to go, truly thinking about it, making those changes, in the different areas, and you can decide what life domains. We cover 6 of them in my group: spiritual, health, relationships, professional, financial, and learning. But it's really up to you. Which ones do you want to really take an interest in and need to? And you may not need to do ones, have a goal for each area, but maybe it's about maintaining something that you're doing. Because, weight loss, I can tell you, as I age, keeping that weight off is becoming a lot harder. I have to
I'm
be
living that
consistent.
right now, Gary.
I think we all are. I think our business owners know what we're talking about here too. But it has to be a constant one. But I put it always there, because otherwise, if I allow that to slip, then of course that's going to change. And, a little slip here, a little slip there. And boy, a year gets by and, you put on 15 or 20 pounds, and that's not what I want to do. So we have to all work towards it. And you do the same thing in your business. I think it really comes back to what you originally said. It's about you.
Yeah.
Looking at yourself, what needs to change, and really taking a hard look at that. So as we're starting that process, I hate, because when I get in a great discussion, I could go for hours, but of course our listeners are very busy people, and and I found that 20 to 30 minute, they'll listen to the podcast and they truly get it in one setting. If you wanted to share with them, is looking forward to 2024, and give them, it can be a 1-step, 2-step, 3-step process. What would you tell them to make sure they do to take some action versus just, wow, that was a great conversation Andy and Gary had?
Here's what I'd recommend. And I actually just did this last weekend. Take a half a day. If you can be luxurious, take a day. Grab some paper, a journal, and look back at the previous year. What went well? What might you have changed? What didn't go as well? Look to the next year and get clear on what you want to create. What kind of revenues? And what I love about what you said is I think your 6 points of personal life, right? We do the same thing. How do you want to feel? What do you want your finances to look like? What do you want your relationships to look like? And create projects around all of those areas and check in once a month. How are we doing? How are we doing? And if you're not staying on top of it, call Gary, because he'll help you.
Or call Andy, because he'll help you too. And I have
One
no
of us
problem
will.
promoting. We will. That's what we want to do, because you can be somewhere different next year at the end of it. And there's going to be challenges in 2024. I mean, we don't know
we're seeing them now.
Yeah, we don't know what the economy's doing. The world's in a little bit of turmoil with the war and some of those things going on in multiple places. So the thing is, as business owners, the only thing you can control, though, is yourself.
That's right.
I used to joke with my people. Go ahead.
No, and it's so important when times get a little challenging to really invest that time and energy on you, the business owner, the team, because just like they would say on a plane, put your oxygen mask on first. If we allow the weight of everything that's going on to deplete our tank, it's going to take away our creativity. It's going to take away our courage. It's going to take away those innate abilities to overcome those challenges. So it's really important to take care of self.
Yeah, I agree totally, Andy. I appreciate you sharing that. I tell you, we could go on, but the thing I want you to do is really take that stock. I love what you said. Take the half day, preferably a day. Just get away. There's mind mapping programs. I'm just working on my mind map now. I don't have it completed yet, but I'm in the process of really setting down, and I'm setting a 3-year plan, then bringing it back to a 1-year plan. And I'm doing some mind mapping with it. And so if you're that type of person, you can put it down there in those different life domains. However you want to do it, you decide. There's tools out there for you. I have resources. Andy has resources. And I want to share that, because you've got a resource that you're willing to give our listeners called scalingminds.com/SBAM, which is Small Business Answer Man. If you get there, and we're going to have links in show notes for they easily get to it. But share with them what is there, Andy, and what can they do if they're looking for something.
Yeah, so one of my favorite things that is there that I share with clients and prospects, there's an assessment there, entrepreneurial fitness, essentially, and it looks at 3 areas: your mindset, your business acumen, your leadership, And it gives you a little bit of a score to say, oh, I might need to actually work on my business acumen a bit, or my leadership, it might be the thing that's holding us back. So that assessment is there. There's a leadership assessment because, of course, that's my passion is leadership. And anyone that is really curious about what is this coaching thing, and they want to practice some courage and vulnerability, I'll gift your listener a 60 or 90-minute coaching session so that they can taste what is possible in one of these engagements. If you recall Gary or call Andy, what might I get from it? So that's there on offer as well.
Well, there's your Christmas gift, folks. Why wait till the end of the year? Why don't you go ahead and get that scheduled? Andy's giving you a great gift, and take that 60 to 90 minutes and get that reflection. I would challenge you, do the assessment first.
Yeah.
Because then it'll probably give you some really good discussion points. He may send that to you even if you do it, because they give you some discussion points. But why not take him up on that offer and stuff? So Andy, I can't thank you for doing that for my listeners and stuff. And it's scalingminds.com/SBAM, which is Small Business Answer Man. We will have it on show notes. All you have to do is click on the link in show notes, and that's available to you. So make sure you go to that. And I challenge you. That's going to be my action that I'm going to tell you is let's do that before the end of the year. So rolling into 2024, you kind of have that. And even if you don't follow up after that, he's willing to give you that 69 minutes. Because Andy has the same philosophy I do. That's why I'm excited to have him on this podcast, is you give. That's when you receive. And if you don't give and you decide not to sign up, we don't get disappointed in that, because maybe in a year from now, you may say, wow, that really made a difference. And then all you have to do is send us a little note. That does make us feel good, because then the heart feels a little bit better and stuff, and it feels really good. So Andy, thanks for doing that. Now, before I let you go, I ask every guest this question, and I want you to share with them, and it can be some of the things we discussed, but it can be something totally different. What would be your best business tip or advice you would give the business owners?
I think we sort of talked about it. My favorite business tip isn't about a system or a skill or knowledge, is ask someone you really trust, a mentor, a colleague, a counselor, coach, whoever. Tell me one thing I do really, really, really well. Take that in, soak it in, celebrate it. And what is one thing that I could be doing better that would help get me to my ultimate goals? Tell me honestly, where should I look to grow? And take that in and work on it. It will make a difference.
Well, I think we've charged you up. Hopefully you understand this power of setting goals, the power of self-reflection. What a great time, because it's the end of fourth quarter and this is the time to do it. Take that extra time, get yourself out of that office, go to your favorite place, wherever it is, and do some of that thinking and writing. Hopefully you can do a full day, but if you can't do a full day, like Andy said, take a half day and give you that time that's available. Remember that the website is scalingminds.com/SBAM. It'd be in show notes, so please check that out for Andy's offers that he made to you. Andy, I can't thank you enough for joining us today on the podcast. I really appreciate you having you on.
What a fantastic conversation. Really fun. We should offline sometime.
Okay, we'll definitely do that. I tell you, folks, now my action I gave you already. My action is take Andy up as an offer, do his discovery session, feel what it's like, 60 or 90 minutes. He's willing to give that to you. Get that done before the end of the year. And find a coach that fits you. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't have a coach or a mastermind group that is making those differences in you, make that a resolution in 2024. You're going to find that person for you. Everybody's different, and we don't match up with everybody. So that's fine. Go out there and seek the person that fits you and really understands you, and then get that support and get that help by having that introspection of the changes that you need to make. So I appreciate you joining us. If you enjoyed this conversation, because I sure enjoy doing it with Andy, is please like and share and let others know about our podcast. We are really in the small business owner space. There is, like he said, 30 some million out there. So, there's a lot of people. I don't have that many downloads yet, so I'm still looking for more downloads. So if you would like and share it, tell your friend. You got another business owner and you're sitting having lunch with them. Say, hey, you need to listen to this podcast. This Gary guy, he's okay. And I appreciate that. So thanks for joining us today on the podcast. It's all the time we have, but go out there each day and continue to grow your business. Remember, don't ascend to the top of the mountain by yourself. When you help others achieve their success, you find significance in life. Make it a great day. Thanks for joining us.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.